You get
Position.
great. So then from here, we can just do share screen or anything we need to share. Like if we want to share.
Good to see you. How's the baby?
Getting bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's good. She's good too. She's surviving. She likes like motherhood and all that stuff. So it's good. Oh, but okay. Okay.
Mind if I share your screen?
Only is interesting.
Oh, it's the-
Jill and Damien are on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here, I'll bring up the agenda. Does Wyatt usually share the agenda, or should we do that from here?
I don't know if that's.
Okay,
That's still really easy.
If you don't mind, I'll start and explain this
Yeah.
and then turn over here
Oh, okay.
for to hear that case.
Okay. This is the one from the schoolhouse.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
right. Let's show it up here.
Carol arrived? Yes, she's on. She was there a second ago.
Yeah, it says that there's a few Zoom users. You're going to go through the online participants. So everybody knows.
Check
Yeah.
sound, see if she can hear.
Yeah, a second ago they did, but
Progress.
Sorry.
yeah, you just want to have one person.
Hi, David.
Did you mute? You're good. Okay. So actually, I think your audio is on call.
I just took it to 0. So no, that's.
Turn your volume down.
See the.
Yeah.
Yeah. Corner.
And turn your volume off.
Right.
I'll say.
Just so that my.
You can. Turn off. Is it one of your two? That sounds better.
No, I think
Yeah.
we're good.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so online we have Wyatt with PTSD. And then the phone number, I think in the chat, I saw that was called, it says Zoom user is Colleen Sackheim and Barry Spicer. I don't know if that's
Yes, that's
the
them.
Zoom.
Yeah.
There's also a phone number that ends 316.
The 316
Is that-
is them.
Okay. And the phone number ending 582.
Do you know? Ellen?
Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, Brian Atwood.
Brian Atwood.
Yes,
Is that a committee member or applicant for the
applicant.
cases?
The first case.
it's 5301 East Fort Lowell.
Great, thank you. Perfect. We'll call you up when we get to that item, and then Carol. Paul Ryan is here. And the two Zoom users who I think are that might be Colleen and Barry.
I see. So they get listed twice.
It's if you call in, sometimes it does that. Is there anyone else on the line who we didn't mention who would like to introduce yourself?
Rose Halstead and Irene Fernandez.
And they are.
5440 East Fort Lowell.
4400 East Fort Lowell. Okay,
They're my name.
thanks for attending.
Thank you.
Does anybody have a printed agenda? I printed it.
Yeah, I think
It's right here on the screen.
Okay. So we just scroll down a bit. and let's see. Darn it, I need to give an extra. I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming back this week. Chris just said, it seems like we've been having a lot of meetings. I said, yeah, we gotta stop this. Thanks. So there are no meetings to approve. There's a call to the audience, but for the specific case, if you just raise your hand to be recognized, or if you're online, speak up if you want to make a comment. We'll recognize you during that case. And then we'll adjourn. So this hopefully will be a fairly short meeting. I have to start by saying I apologize. Part of this is a re-review of a case we already reviewed, and it's my fault. Because as I was cleaning up emails last week, I came across this one from 2022 about conflict of interest. And it actually came up at the Armory Park Historic Zone Advisory Board, having to do with adjacent neighbors. And the question was, should we identify conflict of interest? And so I asked Jody, she checked with the city attorney, went back and forth. But bottom line was that they should, that I should go ahead and step out of this conversation for this rehearing of 5301 East Fort Lowell. So I'm sorry about that, but I'll ask her to send this out again because it's handy to have. So we don't have to do this again. But I don't have any other conflict except I live next door. So I'm gonna turn over to Chris for this part of the meeting. And then just come wave at me or something and I'll come back.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm good. All right, so I want to be clear on this one to make sure I understand. I was not at the meeting when we reviewed this case, so can somebody help me with what we did when we discussed this one prior?
I don't have the meeting minutes in front of me, but we had a list of about 8 or 12 exceptions
Okay,
before we would, that needed to be
addressed
completed
before we voted.
before we voted.
Okay,
And they were all accepted by I forget her name, what's her name that was here?
the manager,
The manager,
the project manager.
the project
Okay.
manager, they were all accepted by her
Okay,
and Michael's got them.
okay, all right,
Okay.
that's fine.
Do you want to, and here's the review of the,
Yeah, thank you, sorry.
and I think tonight,
Mhm.
what do you think our goal is tonight? To just accept that again or to re-review it?
I would think that we'd want to just go over, what I'd like to do is go over the changes that we asked for, and I'd like to show that. I'd like the applicant to show that those changes were accepted, or at least incorporated into the plan rather. Is that fair? The applicant on the phone,
Brian,
Brian, or.
Yes, I believe that I still have to show those on the plan, but those are accepted. And I would acquiesce to Elaine, even though there may be a conflict. There's no problem with those requested changes.
Damien, did you have a question?
No, I just
Or
have,
comment, right?
I just have a couple comments about this case. I mean, I know that we seem to be in a pattern of problematic cases, and I know this case came multiple times before the board. This time because of a technical error. But I do want to just point out that there is a series of deficiencies in this application. The criteria, this is a major renovation of a significant contributing historic building to this historic preservation zone. It's built of adobe, it's from the turn of the century, it is from the Forteño period, it's the teacherage of the schoolhouse, which has also been damaged in recent weeks. A site plan really wasn't provided. There's a sketch. There are no elevation drawings there. I don't even know what you would call this submission. It's sort of like clip art that's supposed to present a legal criteria under which even a review can occur. This board spent an innumerable amount of time with the applicant's agent trying to get to some core agreement when you don't even have a base document that should never have been really truly never accepted and never submitted to this board for review. I mean, as the public, I'm looking at this and this tells me absolutely nothing. And you're now talking about revisions, you're talking about wall enclosures. I mean, there's been all of these changes and yet they're not even reflected in this document. And there's a second updated meeting where you're rediscussing it and none of those changes are reflected in this current plan set. Additionally, the applicant is proposing a full replastering of this property. And the technical standards, 3.6 surface texture, it specifically states that when stucco plaster is being replaced on the entire exterior of a contributing historic building or structure, a lime or mud stucco should be used. Cement-based stucco should not be used. The applicant submission package includes cement stucco. But and that's just one a multitude of issues that I don't think are really addressed in this plan set. And I'm very concerned also as sort of the public, if there was an applicant agent. Is that the person who's actually going to oversee the design build of this? Is that the person represented themselves as sort of the designer or a design build agent? Are they going to actually oversee it? Not all of the intent of all of those conversations actually articulated in legal action report. So those are my concerns, but I'm just concerned that the board continues to receive applications that are deficient. And the result is substandard projects that don't really meet the intent of the development.
Okay. Thank you. Do we want to let the applicant share?
Sure.
Or present the
Brian, do you want to
changes to the project?
present the changes?
Well, I'm not sure I'm clear, but, you know, I'm getting thrown into this at the last minute, so I'm sorry. I'm not very prepared because I wasn't prepared to be into these, and I'm not in the state right now, and I'm working on a few other projects that had my attention, and I didn't think I was going to have to be drawn into this, but I understand the stucco questions. I just didn't realize from the last meeting that we were going to have to do this from a existing structure that we were just going to repair, but we felt like should be probably redone. And I think that some of the structure probably is brick. And from what little time I had to investigate the lime, that's not recommended using on that. But I think if you guys listen to me and let me know what it is that you want, I'll go get that presented. I just wasn't prepared to speak to this and was surprised because it was an existing structure that it's that detailed. You know, there's a roof on there now. We're going to obviously replace that with shingle. The house is stuccoed now. There's some areas that need repair, but instead of just repair it, we were going to try to match it up. If that has to be in lime and that's the process that is required, then I'll go forward and make sure that that's what happens. But if there's some things in there that you need, and we weren't prepared to do those, as I didn't expect that to be part of an existing structure, then just be clear on what it is that you want and I'll get it put in the system.
Brian, at the PRS meeting, they requested information about drainage, and they requested a site plan that included the layout of the house.
Okay.
Trying to think what else was in there. I know that there was a lot of questions about the windows, that the existing plans didn't reflect the windows that needed to be changed out, and that it's not that they didn't match, but they didn't match what the size said it was. So those were pretty significant. The glass doors, I think, are on the east side, and there was a question about those glass doors, and this is all just from PRS. And so this is Mary Lou, and I feel like we need to make these recommendations incorporated with our previous recommendations.
To incorporate the PRS recommendations into what we already
If we didn't have them in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Were they, so they were not in there? Based on
Well,
recollection?
well, I mean, when you look, we had conversation and with the presenter.
Right.
And she said, no, these windows are going to be, 8x8 or
Right.
whatever they were. But the plans that went to PRS didn't reflect those changes, and PRS wants to see them and know their fabric, what they are made of. They also were looking at the door, they were looking at this door closure and we had so much concern about the lentil.
Is there an ability to table this or push this to another meeting and not make any sort of recommendation here? Because one, I don't feel like the applicant is ready to present, right? He said it. And then there's been recommendations from PRS that we have no way of validating, one, what those recommendations were, and two, if they were included in the plan. So I kind of think I'd like to move off this project and go do something different, or go to the next item.
I have one comment, and that is that we were presented with what was gonna be done and pictures of the site and this and that. We never got a plan. We never had a site plan. We never had a plan that we could look at where the driveway was gonna be, where the circulation was gonna be. There's drainage problems on site as we understand it, and there's been no indication of how those are gonna be dealt with. No landscaping plans or anything. So I don't know, I think maybe we just need a much more complete presentation. So we understand
That.
all of the various things. that are gonna happen.
Please.
So Brian, are
Yes.
you feeling, I mean, I think we have two options. One is we can vote, we can determine that we should continue this one rather than vote on it tonight. Or we would vote on it and it may possibly not pass
Because we don't have.
because we don't have the plans.
Complete set of information.
So,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable with that.
so,
Well,
I
we
mean,
can vote on it, but
but it might have a negative
it might have a
outcome.
negative outcome, right, based on what we don't know,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I would prefer we do the lesser of the two evils.
The
From a,
less-
from a time,
Then
Yeah,
it's continue
then
it.
we'll continue it.
Okay.
One other thing I'd like to see is what the relationship between this property and the one to the west of it is, because there's parallel driveways and some issues involved that affect both lots, and I'd like to understand what those relationships are.
Drainage. Okay, do we have to
So-
vote to continue?
Yes.
We have to vote.
So, would you like to make a motion, Rose?
I'd like to motion, I'd just like to make a motion that we continue the review of 5301, the teacherage, at a time when the applicant is prepared to present a site plan and some of these components that have been promised previously and that were requested by the PRS.
All in favor, David?
Aye.
Mary Lou?
Aye.
Aye.
We need Carol.
Aye. Oh, Carol?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. So,
Okay, thank you.
pass that.
I'll go get a lean.
Yes, thank you, Mary Lou.
Keep going, Madam Chair.
Oh, bad.
Sorry. Okay, so Elaine is back in.
Yeah. All right. Joe?
So now you want to introduce, I guess you don't know what's happened since the last time. We should probably
Yeah, we
catch up
can.
everybody on what's happened. Do you want to do that? You want me to do it?
Doesn't matter to me, however you prefer.
I'll introduce because Deb's involved with it. And I also have this, one inch folder with the paper on it. That's why I say I stop. So this is the second time for us to review this case. And PRS reviewed it last week. Was it last week?
Well, last week we brought it
Here.
here.
Here, week
Yeah.
before, it was a PRS.
This is their time.
Right, so it's the
Yeah.
third time.
Which is a charm.
You're not counting.
I certainly hope so. But, so just to catch up. I've seen 3 plans, I believe, no, or more, over the time, because it started a long time ago as an overall plan for the whole property. And then it came down to a plan for a wall and landscaping, and then it was just a wall, and now it looks like landscaping is back.
Well, I
So-
put it in the set because if we were super lucky, we have no comments.
Yeah.
And it would continue, then it would get pushed back to the city for a permit and the set would need to be complete. So the landscape drawings are in there even though they have that.
Okay, well, let me just summarize then, because to catch everybody up. This property has two structures on it, 2 houses on it. That were at one time together as one property. And then they were split and sold to different people, and then they were combined again, or then they were both sold to Peters and combined into one property. The front house is contributing on the National Register, is on the National Register. The back house is contributing to the Fort Worth Historic Zone. It's eligible for the National Register. They're gonna put it on their nomination when we move forward this year. So when it came through this board the first time, I think there was some confusion and about what was required, and we got some cloudy information. So then it went to PRS. PRS had also some concerns, some additional concerns. And they asked for a revised plan back in March or April, maybe April. And then
27th.
came back to them
April.
in September
Mhm.
with a revised plan.
Mhm.
And then that we hadn't seen, so they said, Fort Lowell needs to see that. So we got a copy of that, and then when it came last week, yet another revised plan. It was a different plan from what had been shown to them,
Yes.
because we didn't get it till, nobody had seen it, and we got it Sunday. So that's where we are now.
I can fill in like a couple gaps about like why things went the way that they did. So like the very first drawing that we had, it was proposed a 6-foot wall. And then no visibility from the front side. We had a solid gate. And one of the major concerns was the possibility of losing contributing status of the back house. Therefore, we took it to SHPO. They confirmed it's not a national registered home, therefore they're not sure if that applies. However, Jody had insisted that we still do some due diligence to provide some visibility. So our next step is we provided visibility in the gate, and then there was a little notch that you're not seeing there on this picture currently that was close to the 5360 home, the post-grade solar house, that offered a little bit of visibility as well. During that time period, actually when we did have our meeting in September, it was kind of bombarded with a lot of comments and concerns around the 6-foot height of the wall, and called into question the guidelines. Section 4.3, I believe. And what we tried to do next was to reduce the wall down to 5 feet. We do have a pool on the interior that we are trying to use this wall as part of our enclosure for the pool, and the city of Tucson requires a 5-foot enclosure in order to make it proper to code. But there's still some concerns that we kind of heard about in between those meetings about it being 5 feet. Therefore, Paul began to present what you are going to see today, last week, that offers kind of a hybrid version between a 4-foot wall with some iron on top to still allow for that visibility, but still meet the code standards for the pool. I think that's all. Anything I'm forgetting?
Yeah, the only thing I would add, just a few details on that, is that we reduced the amount of wall significantly in horizontal linear feet. Solid one, that is, and so that's been replaced with a steel assembly design, which has also been revised for this. So that was a big one. So we took the wall down to 4 feet, 4 feet. At the most, except for the gate where it's 6, but that's a gate. So it's a different animal. There was a 3-foot section wall in there too. So we thought that the sort of ruined quality, the intermittent quality of it was pursuant to the character of other walls in the neighborhood. And that's a little that direction. I took a stab at a design for the steel. We can skip right over all the landscape drawings because they haven't been updated. There just wasn't time to get the landscape architect and go on. So those remain unchanged. Here now we're back to the architectural here. So I am sorry for all of you guys playing along at home, but I'm going to point this thing out. So the solid section wall is this. Then there's a 3-foot section of wall right here. And then there's another 4-foot section wall right here. Other than that, that's all a steel picket. That's all steel picket. This is a steel picket. And so one of the things that we're trying to work with the steel is that we have to meet pool requirements, right? Which is a 4-foot maximum space in between members, and we can't have any exterior horizontal on the outside of the fence. You can on the inside of the fence, but the outside of the fence, we can't be closer than 45 inches apart. So it's really an assembly built from the inside out. So all of the vertical elements are to the outside, and then the horizontal on the inside of that, and the vertical to the horizontal going up are yet again inside of that. We're definitely aware of some of the fences in the neighborhood that you have visibility. You have a TO, there's some wood picket fences, there's some chicken wire, and
Cyclone.
it was snow fences. And you know, that part of the character, and I get that, but I don't see how that's going to meet the pool requirements. They're just not rigid enough. And so that's how we end up with steel. But you can see if you scroll down to the second architectural sheet, there's more information about that steel fencing. Keep going down further. Here's the detail. I know it's very small because we're rendering that, and so it's made up of a variety of steel shapes to give it so that it's not super consistent, not repetitive. Well, it's repetitive, but it's sort of broken up, and so the way it goes.
So pickets are of a regular height.
The pickets are they're 5 feet.
5 feet.
Yeah. So I mean, the pickets are actually 5'4" to the tallest ones. If you want to let me share, I can actually take you even closer and help you understand it.
So you have to become a chair or co-chair to be able to share. Is that
I
right?
think anybody on the Zoom meeting, as long as
Yeah.
you.
Sharing in the past.
Okay.
Well, I've just made you a co-host if you want to share your screen.
White is going to make you a co-host so you can share.
Yes, one continue.
One.
Share. So we can possible motion sequence here. What you mean? So it's made up of the outer ones, the vertical ones are made up of 2 different types of elements. Even closer so that we trees. Let's get into some.
You want us to interrupt you, or do you want to go through the whole thing first?
I'll just finish by describing what these things are. So every third one is a small 1.5 by 1 inch steel angle. That's these guys. Those go up to 5 feet. Then they're called out as steel rods, 1/4 inch steel rods, and those are bent in the last 8 inches here. And this goes up to 5'4", and their orientation changes every time they occur. And then behind that, supporting those. This is a steel channel facing out. Let me move the sun so we get a better sense of the shadow. There we are.
Could you explain about the 40? They had to be more than 40, the two horizontals had to be more than 45 inches or 45 inches apart. And they had to be on the inside or they had to be on the outside.
If they're on the outside, they have to be 45 inches apart. If they're on the inside, they can do whatever you want,
Really?
5 inches?
45 if they're on the outside.
which is almost, it's most of the height of the fence. Just want to prevent people from getting a toe in there and climbing
Right.
over it.
But they could climb up.
But you need it regardless. So both of these horizontals are the steel channel, it's a
Thank
1
you.
inch by 2 inch steel channel, and then the verticals are paired steel flat bar. So that when you're looking straight on, they basically disappear.
Which one, so which is which?
So I'm gonna go in the inside.
So is that like number 4 rebar or something?
It could be, that would probably be the cheapest. I have to price it out with rebar, and then I was thinking possibly it could be 2. So here we are on the inside. It's not back of it. I'll move the sun around so you can see better. It's been set. It's got a new 11 o'clock. 10 o'clock in the morning. So now you can see these two verticals, which are the primary supports. For these, and those are correctly 4 feet. So that's the specifics of it. I was trying to get a little bit of Ocotillo form in there. It's trying to get, the frequency is twice as much as you would need for, to meet pool requirements, so we could go with half as many, but again, the Ocotillo reference, the thing that those are very high frequency.
How far is the fence behind that 3-foot wall?
Oh, over here,
You know, right, yeah,
right there.
yeah.
So there's a variety of conditions there. Part of it's on top. And part of it, just so that there are a variety of conditions, so that visually it continues to be sort of interesting. It's probably 2 inches in front of that wall
Yes.
in this case.
You might check the code on that, because somebody can hop on the lower wall and jump over the
But
upper one.
But the pool is on the inside, that's on the inside.
Well,
So
back in the day,
You-
that wouldn't have worked.
They weren't allowed to climb in either. They couldn't climb in or
out.
they couldn't
Well,
climb into
The
the,
As
Right.
the International Residential Code says, if they're on the outside of the fence, they can't be closer to the
Okay,
45
well,
inches,
good.
and then there's no mention of what's on the inside.
That'll happen playing with you.
but yeah. All you need is one baby to drown, one little 4-year-old to climb in and drown because they could reach in. And
They'll be able
but I mean, that's the committee, that's that on.
Sorry, this is where it off the first time, was with babies drowning.
Okay, sorry.
And pool-
Last time. Won't do it again.
Anyway, I'll stop sharing, I just wanted to, I didn't think there was. No, this is fantastic. Yeah, no, this is to change the sun again so we can see it better.
It's really, this is a really cool rendition, isn't it? That's really high tech stuff. Wow.
So, are you ready for questions, or do you wanna?
Sure, I think there's nothing
Start
more
the
to
session.
describe, so
Yeah.
I think it's.
Well, I'll say it's a much more creative approach to it. We can commend you for that. Variety is gonna help. The 3-foot wall, I'm not sure that's gonna go. I mean, they used to tell us, for the same reason you can't put your foot on the bottom rail and jump over. You also can't have something that they can climb on and then climb over, but you'll find out about that.
If I may make a comment about that really quick,
3-foot wall, where's there a 3-foot wall?
right
This-
here.
This wall right here is only 3, so if I back up,
Yeah,
the front wall, that's 4.
okay.
Then this one's 3, and if we were this way down 4, then.
If I may make a comment about that, and I know this means that there's kind of. Anyways, last week when Paul was working on these, I didn't had the time to thoroughly look at this. And although this idea is extremely creative and I think would be really cool, I also would maybe be interested in actually just making the full length wall in that section rather than having it kind of hybrid right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Full length wall,
So
right.
if that were to be a concern, just keep that in the back of your mind that that's also an option as well too. I know that one of the primary things, full height. So I know one of the things that you guys really want is more visibility, and I do think we've offered, when we talk about like where we started and where we are now, this is vastly much more visibility and a lot more visibility than there currently is today. But when I was re-looking at these, I'm like, oh my God, my husband's going to shoot me. When he sees that even on the west side, it's this, you know, this much visibility. So I just,
So you're talking about making this wall here on 4.
yeah, or 5,
And this is for just,
yeah.
yeah.
You know, the guidelines do say that on the like west and east sides of the building, it can go up to 6 feet. It's just the front visual that should be at 4 feet.
Well, we talked about that a bit before, and the fact that this is actually a private road. So you're on the corner of a private road, but you have access to use yourself, or the neighbors on the other side can also use this easement. So that was a consideration for leaving some of that open. And was there another place that is open right around the corner, right there? Right on the corner?
You can have that easement. I don't know what your, I don't know what your access to is.
So
Yeah.
the northeast corner, northwest corner.
Northwest corner, yes,
Yeah.
there's more than.
Well, I'm concerned about the 4-foot wall at the front. I've driven down Fort Lowell so many times this week looking, because I thought you must have seen a precedent for this like stucco adobe looking wall with rebar or something on top. And the only thing I could find was somebody put some little bird things on the top. And I couldn't find anything like that. Has anybody else found a precedent for this mix? So to make the 4-foot wall like a 5-foot wall or whatever it is, by putting metal across the top. I just haven't seen it.
But is that a requirement that it has to already exist?
Is it a requirement? No, but if there's setting a precedent means that then every house can do it. And setting a precedent in our neighborhood would mean doing something that doesn't match the neighborhood. And what we've been asking is that it match. And I don't know how to ask it any other way, but to say, we asked that it would match the neighborhood. And without a precedent being set, it still looks more modern than it does look like our historic rural neighborhood. And this is not a neighborhood that was big beautiful houses by big beautiful architects, you know, back in the 1920s and 30s. And instead, these are homes that were built by Porteños and people who came up, and that is the culture of the neighborhood, and that is the feel of the neighborhood that we are trying to maintain. And that's all I have to say. So unless somebody's seen a precedent and I'm missing it, I just don't know what else to say about that.
I see those kinds of walls in Midtown. I see them in Armory Park, but they're much more Victorian flavor, right? In Midtown, it's just your standard fences with standard walls with wrought iron.
sometimes we get a builder who wants to build a Santa Fe style house, because those are really cool. And they are kind of our era, but they don't match Fort Lowell Historic District. And that is the, that's kind of the flavor of this. It's really cool. It is really cool. But it doesn't match the flavor of our preservation zone.
I'm gonna
Turn
say
around and look at the front.
So that wall there is 5 feet, correct?
It's so much darker up there than it is.
I'm sorry. 4.
Yeah, this wall right here, which exists,
It's like
it's
6.5.
6 right here, it goes to 5.5.
It's
So
really,
you can use that as a
it's
gauge.
lumpy, it's
Lumpy and swales.
steps down,
right.
And it's perpendicular
Beautiful
to
wall.
the structure.
Mhm.
You were looking for something that was written, I don't know that, about whether something is contributing or detracting. That's really the question here, about those stakes. Anyone else has comments, and I'll open these comments to the audience. Colleen, Barry, if, let's just keep them short, Rose, Irene, Damien. Because everybody's concerned, it's a really important structure in this neighborhood. And we really want it to continue to be something that people are really attracted to. And then, my only other comment right now is I'm confused, because we're seeing something that shows 4 foot and 5 foot, but you're saying, and it's open in spaces. And then you're saying now that you want it enclosed at 5 or 6 feet.
I don't necessarily need to like confuse you at that part. It's just on the west side. There's sections where there's like wall, and then there's partial wall, but also like full fences and things like that. I didn't notice that those first drawings, and in my mind, I wanted it to be like full wall and then full fence, and then full wall and then full fence, you know, where you have that kind of like back and forth visibility. He does a hybrid mix of that in those areas. So if it were my preference, I would be doing at least 5 feet on those sides and the wall portions.
But would you have open portions?
Yeah, the open portions would still stay. You're gonna walk up real quick. Okay. So like this portion right here, I would want to raise and make it full length. But this portion right here, it's open, it would still exist. This portion right here is open, this would still exist. This portion would go the full length, just wall.
4
Like,
5 feet.
yeah,
And it's what now? It's 5 feet now,
It's
right?
it's 6. I mean, it's all over the place, because currently right
No.
now,
The proposal shows 4.
Okay.
So where the top of the steel is, that would be the top of the plaster wall with no steel on it.
Okay.
but that has nothing to do with like the front would be, you know, 6.
Could you go back to the perspective where we're looking from the west towards what is now the 4-foot wall? I'm just curious, if you raise that to 5 feet, what would that? How would the sightlines change? Of course, it depends on how we're at. On those photos.
So you're asking without the fence?
No, I'm asking, so this is 4 feet now, correct, right? And I thought there was a section over here that was 4 feet.
This section right here is currently 3 feet.
It's 3 feet, okay, right.
And that's not an existing wall, the 3-foot wall.
No, none of
That's-
this exists currently. Currently, right now, what exists is a mixture of patio, old wood.
So.
That goes up to about 6
Do you get a sense of it?
I just.
So how much more, I guess I'm wondering how much more privacy would you get? I mean, certainly here, if you raise,
Yeah,
again, having a little bit of a hard time trying to So this wall here, if you raise that from 3 feet to 5 feet, that would obviously. Add considerable privacy, while
Especially
at
to the
same
front
time
house.
taking away some of the sight lines.
Yeah.
This, I mean, this already looks pretty private there, by the same token, not.
Your pool's back there, Rachel.
Yeah.
It starts, is the pool gonna start after the, yeah, so having the solid wall in the back is going to give you some privacy, right? While still allowing the easement to see through.
I mean, already had a fair amount of privacy with fire. With 4 feet there now, or is that 5 feet?
I
I'm sorry.
mean, but I'm 5'3", I could see over a 4-foot wall. Like, it's, a lot of people could. That's not much.
Well, I mean, you can walk with that.
So can I suggest something about, how to approach this? Can we approach it so that there's some consistency about where we're looking and what we're expecting to? So you were saying, you're explaining about, you'd like to see that higher, right? So if we can talk about that, privacy in the back, 5-foot wall in the back near the pool. Is there a conversation about that? And then we can talk about the open area here, seeing through from the lane, it just to structure a little bit more, and then maybe we'll come up with an answer.
So everywhere that there was a solid wall, we're looking at a 5-foot wall now with no metal on top.
Correct.
Okay, so you
And
there's still shows there, but it
But it's
wouldn't,
not gonna be there.
but it wouldn't be there.
Right.
So only the metal would be in the open areas.
Correct.
And then. And that's for that west side. I know we had talked about, when we first met, we had talked about the meandering nature of the current wall, like on that side of the easement. So that west side, that it isn't a straight wall, it is a meandering wall because it had all those different things that you just described, and that was something we had talked about and had hoped that you would put in the plan. But that's from the original discussion,
There is some sections, well, I don't know, it's hard to see on these renderings, but there is these sections in what he created, like there's like these little curves right here where it kind of connects to the iron and things like that, so that does exist.
Okay.
I do understand, I know we've had this conversation several times. These are renderings, they are not real life.
Yeah.
We will be working with artisans that will help create that rolling nature, and I do have some pictures and things like that associated if that's something you wanted to look at. But the renderings are limited, so we do have to use our imagination a little bit with this as far as like that roundness and lumpiness that we would want to create in life.
So how do people feel about the 5-foot wall, and how far is that wall? Is it 50 feet? Is it guesstimate?
The one that's farthest to the south, that is, it's on the drawings, but it's 50, it's in the 50 ballpark, 52, maybe somewhere in there. Damien,
So I just wanted to offer a couple comments, because Jill and I, Elaine, all went out to the site and we, tried to have a very productive conversation. One of the things that I suggested, when you walk down the lane, it really has this sort of very natural world quality that's changed by this plan significantly. And one of the things that really can be thought about with using the metal fencing, particularly along the lane, has really allowed us to hold live ocotillo, which is already, we have 20 feet of planted live ocotillo already. And that would both provide additional privacy by creating a less clear view, but also allowing for sort of visual access, which you currently have. And that might be a way to use natural materials to help. So it's not just about the rusticated materials, but it's actually about the living nature of the neighborhood. We also, some of my concern is still the middle part of the wall. And not it being 6 feet in the middle, is shown in this drawing.
Well, yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so those are just I really thought ocotillo could be used.
Is that on the west side? So we're talking about 6 foot, there's a 6-foot wall on the west side?
No.
Okay, we'll get to this. The gate part.
But still, but on the
basically
west side.
what he's just saying is in those areas where there would be simply just iron fencing, behind that, putting some lines of ocotillo as well, so that would really kind of replicate what you're currently seeing today in a lot of parts of our yard and what you do see around the neighborhood. So it's not so much about these iron bars that you're seeing, it's more about the ocotillo.
So that's second concept is 50 feet of wall,
Like Colin.
40 feet of ocotillo or metal with ocotillo planting, using existing what's there.
What color are you planning for the color you're showing?
Are you talking about the plaster one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Let me just
You
make,
have it written down somewhere, but it's tannish color, it's like sand.
It's all white, yeah.
And what I saw was maroon, something monsoon.
Oh, monsoon,
Oh,
yes.
That,
Bio-lime plaster,
I took that one
okay,
just because I didn't want to have any confusion
Yeah.
about whether it was gonna be BioLine or not. The BioLine turns out wonderful product, awesome stuff, doesn't, like, it expands, it contracts. It's also very expensive.
about, yeah.
It's the stuff that the color's like impregnated in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
It's
sure.
like a synthetic, yeah, okay, sure.
But
I would just,
we're looking to do like a CNB tan brown color.
Then
I
we
would just
plan to
suggest that
do-
the darker that color is, the more this is gonna drop back into the landscape. The lighter it is, the more it's gonna come forward and look like. So, I would seriously, you can almost see the difference between the shadowed wall and the lit wall. That's what would happen if that wall was a darker browner color.
So to clarify, you're saying that's something that you think would be
I think that'd be good.
ideal?
Well, I think it would, yeah.
I'm a huge fan of dark colors in the desert, but I'll add this, and it hasn't come up in the discussion at all. There's a series of low walls in front of the existing main house, the rear house.
Yeah.
That are not very tall, 2 feet, they're probably not even 2 feet, but I think that they're part of the family of sightliness. In my opinion, there's sort of code. If it's a building, it's a full height building that has exposed fire adobe or brick on the top. If it's a site wall, like this one around the front, there's no fire adobe. That code is really consistent throughout the property as it exists. And so we're continuing that with these.
You're talking about the color.
Well, I'm talking about if the wall goes to another color, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's
For the rest of the walls, the existing walls that are around the house.
They could make that one a different color.
Well, yeah, we do eventually someday, when we have enough money, plan to, renovate the front house, the back house, which would include restuccoing it with a lime plaster, and we would make all of those colors match. It might be a little mismatched for a period of time until we can get, to that place. But we would intend to have them be the same.
So you said there's a family of walls, so the walls in the back are kind of white or what?
They're like, remember I was telling you about the creamy flame?
Yeah.
They're like a
Isn't
pink,
it like pinkish?
it's pinkish, yeah.
Okay.
But eventually I would want to restuck those back, you need restuck those, so then something like that.
So let's continue around the corner here. The corner is gonna be open with metal. Is that right? Sorry.
Hi, this is Colleen Sackheim. Is it possible for me to ask a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Colleen, you raised your hand and I didn't acknowledge you. Please, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just, with the first picture of the plan with the house there, he's got a row of trees that are not there. I mean, there's another property that's how with Pendleton Spicers, fencing that goes down that wall. So when you're looking at both sides, they're pretty close together. And it's going to, it's the two walls are going to clash. And, with the vegetation that's out there, it's just not a true rendering of what is out there, so that you could really look to see how it's going to fit in. You've got, an old fence on one side with Pendleton Spicer's property, and now you've got this modern looking, wall and iron steel. It just, for me, it just does not work.
I've got to jump in here and say that this row of trees where my mouse is right here is an existing row of mesquites. This is the private easement. these trees, though they are not accurate to the actual species that are there, these trees are on the adjacent properties that put them in to sort of be a spatial containment that would represent the actual spatial containment, so they are accurately placed. And there is no fiction regarding the placement of trees.
It's just hard to, it's hard to
It
see
is, yeah.
from a rendering, yeah.
It's,
Okay, so can we go back
Exactly.
again to the corner? The corner is gonna be, is
Oh, yeah,
it
right,
instant? Yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
can't
so-
see from that whether it
Yeah,
makes a
let's
curve,
go
or
over there.
whether it goes, yeah.
Maybe if I go up one minute. So right now. I'm sorry, the software doesn't have mesquites that twist and turn and, I mean, gray roads. This,
great.
this is, yeah, I do, not great, well, make them, anyway, this mesquite right here in particular is quite. It goes to the south like this, and so and then there's the roadway, so we stop short of that. To give that mesquite some room to exist without being put, you know.
So that's what we're
before the-
talking about, meandering.
Yeah. And so that's why, then it kicks closer to the road as it gets well south of that existing tree. Well, I think it goes further south. Anyway, you guys wanted to be here on the west side, so.
So it squares off at the northwest.
Yeah,
Metal, is what you're saying, because one of them had a curve around.
Like
Yeah,
a curved
and-
wall
yeah.
instead of iron. I would probably
Like-
prefer, but.
this all happened, poor June, we had to get this out in 2 days. And she was in meetings all day, so I had to throw this out, so. Feel free to say. It's all-
Yeah, I mean. Once again, I don't want to confuse people. In the corner currently, what he has on these plans, it would be like an open gate corner, but I think it would actually be very beautiful to take that corner and make it a round wall curve. They have a couple examples of those from the neighborhood as well, too, where it kind of curves around that tree. And then you'll still get his iron fencing, but instead of it being iron fencing right there, that's a little bit more squared, it'd be a curved wall. Okay,
Any
You're talking about
comments?
that corner right there being the first one.
This one,
yeah.
Curving out,
that corner would just,
Curvy
basically the corner would have a
Concave.
radius in it.
convex.
yeah, we would be on the outside of the curve. Right in, right? Yeah,
There's also doesn't necessarily have to go vertical to the ground, you could angle that wall back down, because you have the fence behind it. Yeah.
Weird.
Okay, now let's talk about the big elephant in the room, which is the 4 foot to 6 foot height in the front.
do you want me to just take them all back to what was when we try and start with this? With the 3 foot and 4 foot? Do you want me to read it now?
No, I'm just talking about the very front.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what I want to ask is, when we were here last time, Mike made a suggestion that be a 4 foot wall with a 4 foot gate. And then behind there is a metal fence. So, and that, actually, then that 4 foot wall just provides privacy, right? It provides the privacy of,
Yeah.
without the gate.
I thought you drew and rendered exactly what Mike had drawn and shown.
No, he did suggest that there was a.
That's it.
Like,
But yeah, but I mean,
I think he
This
only suggested that
copy of
he
10.
was worried about the hybrid
But
nature of the
It's here. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brilliant
suggestion of it. He also said, but maybe you do something else. So,
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know if I like the idea, like visually in my head, of the redundancy of like one wall and then another fence behind it. So according to full code, it is okay to do a hybrid wall as long as 3 inches is a portion of it.
So what's the height of the wall from the west edge of the gate structure that way?
So this is
Yeah,
four,
what's that?
and
That's
then
4
this
feet.
goes up to 6, and then this goes down to 4.
So, to continue this point, I would argue that right here, it ceases to be a wall and it starts taking the gate.
Well, I wouldn't make that.
What's that?
I'm not making that argument.
Right. No,
I mean, to me, again, we talked about this, to me, it's the front wall, I mean, it's part of the wall structure. It's not part of the house, it's not connected to the house. And again, you know, I mean, and this is really, again, I mean, everything is tied to the rule, which is part of like, the frustration in this case too. And Cory, can you tell us, why wasn't this pool part of the review at all? You know, why these things were separated and detached when the pool was clearly a structure that's part of the site plan development and wasn't part of the HPZ review and we built. And then everything on top of that is about creating a security around the wall and the heights of the metal that's created this.
So my understanding is that pools are not considered a structure because they're not above ground, so they're not, don't have the same visual impact that structures do.
So even though the code specifically, the HPZ code calls out that structures are things that are permanent even below grade. I mean, that specifically calls out that language in the HPZ code section.
I don't think we've had pools reviewed typically, I don't know, Michael, yeah, so I.
No, we don't.
It's been a institution understanding that. pools-
But if a pool have a gate,
We had to review.
Okay, as part of a larger development or what was.
Not necessarily.
On its own.
Not necessarily, it's been about 4 years, but common practice was we did get to review pools because it was a change to the site plan of the property. It may have been done as a courtesy by staff at that time, but if a pool goes up in Armory Park, we expect to review.
but if there is a review, if there is a gate or any structure around the pool, that one is reviewed. But if you're just putting a pool underground, I don't recall any case that will review that. But we do review structures. If they came and this wall was around the pool, then it will be subject to review, or you have a pool house or any of those things will be subject to review.
I think it's a little problematic now because of the new permitting system and the fast track for pools doesn't allow the same mechanism for subsequent design plans for that sort of thing. So it's changed the process to not allow what was previously standard practice.
So, I don't want to distract from the meeting, but the.
I'm not trying to read it, I
Yeah,
just,
because I do want to explain the fast track, because nothing in a historic zone falls into the fast track.
good to know.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
So that's not an option for.
Okay. But yes, every single pool that is currently in Armory Park was reviewed through the HPV.
Does it take a permit to put in a pool?
Yes.
Yes.
So it has a permit, but they didn't ask what they were gonna do about fencing, even though.
Well, this is problematic here because it's in the front yard. I mean, that's the pool's in the front yard of the back house, right? So there's another pool on Presidio that this happened to, but those people took it out. Next owner took it out or filled in the pool. So yeah, it's kind of a problem because you get this kind of problem. You end up with this issue. But let's go back because the pool's almost there. So let's go back to this. Because I'd like some opinions about this. First of all, the metal, the makeup of the metal, the variety and the size and the, you know, is that what people, I mean, I'm just asking, I can give my opinion, but.
Well, I had a comment. on that.
Okay, good.
If you considered where the wall comes back down and hits the 4 foot, this gate structure is fully a third of the entire distance across the front. So a third of the distance across the front of this is essentially 6 foot rather than 4 foot. I don't know if that makes sense. It just seems to me to be a oversized gate with oversized edges on the side. That gate could be slimmed up substantially, and it would maybe even be a little more proportionally. That's an opinion, but
Well,
I do think it takes up a lot of that. A third of the front of this wall is essentially 6 feet tall.
and I
That's
think
what
it's,
I don't know if you know,
I think the proportion is
is
a
that
little off
accurate?
too.
The wall, is that?
I mean, it might be a third of the wall now that we've reduced it significantly from the east, because it used to go all the way
Yeah.
to the front house.
Right.
We've reduced it significantly from the west because we wanted to make way for the mesquites and not interfere with their growth, so. Because the wall got a lot shorter, then proportionally, yes. the
It
gate
looks that way,
is-
but we're actually getting so much more visibility than there even is today.
Well, and then I think the building is a lot of proportion too, because it makes it look like it's a 12-foot parapet. I think it's more like a 9-foot parapet, right?
This, I mean, this is
Actually,
part of the coming discussion currently. This is accurate. In the existing house here. But when we get to this, and just don't want to look at these general ones yet, there'll be one right here, it's only 8 inches wide, doesn't pass as structural and it's failing. And so the best we can hope for to keep that thing from falling over is to put a concrete block going beam inside. And so in this rendering, we're matching the height, but that's as it exists.
In the
the height
rendering, you're
is-
matching one.
The height, the top of this parapet
Yeah.
matches the existing parapet on the original, because this is not original.
Because the structure is failing and that.
Well, not much of this is original.
Right.
And this.
But this box, right?
That's
That's original. And then there was
right. I guess what I'm saying is the height of 6 feet there looks lower because it looks like that parapet goes up to 12 feet. Right now, I think that parapet goes up to about 9 feet.
Oh, this is also accurate. The height of this is the height of the existing, right? You can see where my mouse is.
Yeah, yeah.
That is accurate to the height. This one is 12 inches higher than it is in its current
Right.
state.
That's what
That's
what
where
I
it is
thought.
right there.
Okay.
So why such a big gate?
So we purposely made it 6 feet wide so that the interior of the yard could still be accessed if needed.
There's no other way in.
Yeah.
So.
There's
everybody's gonna box
completely
down.
blocked off so for many reasons.
But that's by design. I mean, you could put another opening anywhere.
You could down the west side, take a section.
That's true.
You could drive through if you wanted to.
It's our own yard, I don't really want to hurt your farms.
No, I'm not
No, but it's that same access of having. All of a sudden, I don't know, you're gonna be a truck that needs.
So
to
there's
get
the
through there.
trees on that side too. that
Right.
says.
Elaine,
Yes.
it's Colleen. I just want to go on record that Barry and I are opposed to the 6-foot wall and the 6-foot gate.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, David? Do you have any comments on this?
I'm probably going to be voicing a contrarian opinion here, but I think it's quite a brilliant response. I think it's a creative, I might quibble a little bit from an aesthetic point of view in the front, with the gate or the width of the gate, but that's an aesthetic choice. I don't really have any other issues besides that. I think the combination of the steel and the metal and the configuration of the steel is really very creative. And so I don't have a major problem with this, and I think maybe it might be worth pointing out that there's this kind of tension, I think, within my own mind, and I suspect that others will counter this perhaps very vigorously. But I like the combination of a bit more of again, whether or not this is historical, sometimes I get a bit overwhelmed with that perspective. And I think this is a reasonable accommodation between the historical and a wall that achieves the sorts of purposes that the homeowners want, and with the kind of aesthetics that I think is compatible with the historic district.
So this is your third meeting. And I appreciate your and Paul's, I can't imagine the frustration you probably felt with some of this. So I mean, I think the fact that you guys have changed the design significantly from the initial offering has been fantastic. It's showing we're coming together, right? I do like the fact, I do like the steel fence, and I like the fact there's an organic component to it, right? Where at the top of the pickets kind of curve around a little bit. I think it's, I like this. I think it's a creative solution to, I think it's a creative solution to everything that you've heard over the last, counting today, 2.5 meetings or whatever. So I appreciate this. I like this.
Any other comments?
Well, I think, given this form, if we were gonna stick with this form, I think it now comes down to color. And for example, if the steel is rusted, it would make a big difference. And if, as I said before, if it was a darker color, so it blended into the shade and the whole sense of it. My thing about the Fort Lowell neighborhood is where it says that it's the rural character that has to be maintained. And the rural character can only be maintained if we vigorously keep as much open space as we can in a natural environment. That's what creates the open space in the old Fort Lowell neighborhood. And I think you could get away with this, but how it's planted, what it's screening, and what the colors are going to make or break it. I think if it was white with black wrought iron, it's a disaster.
No, I certainly would not do that.
Well, I'm just saying, but even the pinkish color would drive me nuts.
It starts green and goes dark green. So it stays dark.
So anyway, that's my comments, is how you sensitively choose the color and make this thing drop into the ground as opposed to
where it goes
knocking your eyes out.
To be your color that you're envisioning,
I'm envisioning almost what I'm seeing right there.
do you know that house on Beverly that has like the dark green windows and it's got a darker tan color to it?
It's nice.
It's either Alan's house or it's the one that used to be orange.
I'd have to look it up, but
Well,
it's darker.
Let's try to, let's just make some recommendations about the specifics maybe. I think what I've heard is, and I do want to voice my own opinion, I have trouble with so much metal. It looks like a stockade to me. So I know that you're trying to introduce a lot of variety in the metal. And especially with the cross beams going across above the 4-foot wall. I think that's an issue. I would rather just see them floating above the wall. And that they're all pretty small, and I've shown Jill my fence, and it's rebar, it's a little, small, it's a full fence, rebar, and it's rusticated, and it disappears in the features. So, something like that is what I prefer to see.
Well, these are rebar signs.
But aren't some of them like 4-inch bars, or is that a different plan?
Every 4 feet,
Yeah.
the verticals,
Yeah.
those are, I think there's a 3-inch bar, 3-inch flat bars.
Yeah.
But the
Okay.
ones in the front are 1/2 inch by 1 inch angle, every third one, the 2.
1/2 inch by 1 inch angle, so the ones that you see in front of the taller, Ocotillo style, those guys. I want the bars to disappear.
You mean the vertical or the horizontal?
So these guys,
Even the pickets.
oh, it takes a while to catch up,
Yeah.
sorry.
I
These
mean,
guys,
visually to disappear.
you're seeing a half inch side, they're half-inch by 1 inch. These guys are the 4 inch. rods.
Half-inch by 1 inch.
So which line do you wanna see disappear? I'm confused.
In other words, if I
This
see,
horizontal?
if I see the 4-foot wall, if there's metal above it.
So instead of having a
Instead of
contrasting color, you are asking for a possible.
Well, not just color, just the, you know, if there's a way to bring that. These look very close. Are they 4 inches apart or?
These are
they 2 inches apart? So they only need to be 4 inches apart, right?
Right.
So you could take out half of this metal
You could
and still be compliant.
Exactly. I was looking at the fence across the way, the snow fence, which is very, very tight, very, very high frequency. Ocotillos are very high frequency. So you take out every other one, you save.
Maybe other have opinions about the metal.
Would you prefer that? I mean, we're really talking about aesthetics here, aren't we, right?
Certainly prefer any opportunities to save money. That is definitely yes. I'm open to having less metal as long as, I mean, I can't necessarily visually determine in my mind what that would look like, so. It kind of just depends how it looks.
I'm gonna change my hat for a second, then we put on my contractor hat. And so, if this went away, this horizontal, I get it aesthetically. That means these guys, these flat bars go away, which are holding it up. Which means these have to be structurally mounted to the top, so under the stucco guy. I have to go around each one of these with stucco. To be smooth.
I will say, I do like the bar across, like, I don't necessarily want that to go away, but I would be open to like less bars, you know, vertically.
So how do you avoid the stucco problem with what we're seeing right here?
The only things that would penetrate would be these two. flat
So what
bars.
are they, like a half inch or 1 inch above the wall? Is that what you're saying?
These guys,
The verticals.
those guys would not actually hit the stucco, they would be just above the stucco. These guys penetrate.
So they're gonna float.
Yep, but I mean, it's very small.
If they can still float without so many of the bars.
Yes.
Well, for what it's worth, I like the bar.
The horizontal bars.
I don't like, I'm not fond of the horizontal.
I'm not,
I
I'm
like-
really not, but I like the spacing of it because it has a kind of.
I even
It's
like
kind
the
of
thicker one with the holding.
It's like an artificial ocotillo fence, which is what draws me to this design.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's why
I
I
agree.
like-
No, I agree.
It's a compromise, right,
So,
with how you guys are planning to use the house, right, with still keeping some organic nature to the neighborhood.
So a teenager's not gonna have, if you get rid of the horizontal. Teenager will just.
We're not
jump up
talking
there and
about
grab
drawing
it. Well, yeah, I guess a 3-foot baby wouldn't be able to.
Okay. All right, so we've got to.
2-year-olds that hit you, so
I've got some other questions, so we've got to, let's get some kind of consensus on what we've seen so far. And give you some recommendations. Board members. Please. So recommendations on the west side are that there's a 50-foot length of 5-foot wall. Solid.
Yes, and no
Yes.
metal.
Solid, meanders, no metal. It meanders around the trees. It's tannish in color. And it's lumpy.
Mike,
Oh, man.
Okay, and then the area with 40 or 50 feet of existing open field is just metal, right? Does it have walls behind it or not? The recommendation.
What's this?
So we're talking about this, we're talking about what he showed us earlier, 50 foot of solid
Right.
wall with buttresses, I'm assuming.
Yes.
And then another 40 or 50 feet of metal. Or whatever it is, 20 feet of metal, then 40 feet of what, wall?
So this is the 50-foot section.
Right.
Here.
Right.
I'm just gonna zip to the drawings because the dimensions are on them, so I can give you have to guess. Starting from the street side, the north side. First section, just fence. Just the steel fencing, right, the steel fencing is 17.5.
So then approximately 20.
Yeah, and then there's what on the drawings is the 3-foot wall is just under 12 feet.
A 5-foot wall.
That's what Joe was asking for. And then there's another 18
I'm
feet.
sorry, go back to what used to be the 3-foot wall, now the 5-foot walls, what's the one?
It's 11.6 or 11.9 now, sorry. And
12 feet?
Sure, and then there's another section of all steel, that's 18 feet. And then the last section of 5-foot wall is 54 feet. And it just gets you to the north edge of the existing house.
Yeah, just a reminder, like
Okay.
this is not going the whole length of the west side, the back. Southwest side of the house is gonna remain as is, which is like a mixture of like old wood and steel.
Okay.
And is it your intention in the steel section in this to put OPT along with it?
It's already there.
I just thought
Yes, we might not do it right away, but I like the idea.
it's a good idea.
So, okay, so then going back to the front, and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, you guys, because. Keep up there.
Okay, so the front wall is total from west to east, including the gate. Is 30 feet. And then between the end of that wall and the existing front structure, there's another 11 feet of just steel.
And what's the total dimension of the door and the doors, the 6-foot components of that?
I have to go to the middle, it's not far enough from that, but I'll let you know.
30 feet total, 11 feet of steel, so about 40 feet across. And then we decided that the gate is 6 feet wide, is that right?
Well,
He's gonna give us.
The boot part is, but I think you're probably asking for the
Dimensions of the 6-foot parts of the gate.
starting from where it starts to go.
The part that's not 4 foot.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
that's
this
a
would be a
big
real
design.
fast.
That's 14 feet.
14 feet gate.
14 feet from there, it stops being 4 feet, it starts to rise, right where that curve starts.
So that's half the wall.
So it's half.
But
the
it
wall,
doesn't mean that's all 6 feet though, remember, like you're kind of rolling it up.
But it's
to
not 4 feet, but it's not 4 feet.
Right,
Where you're
You
rolling
guys,
it.
I'm so uncomfortable with it being so high. I just am so,
but it is such a small portion,
but it's not.
It's
It's
half the
now it's half of that wall.
but it's really not half of the front.
I understand.
Because there's a whole portion where there's not gonna be really any wall that what it currently
That's right,
exists
that
today.
11,
You
that
have like
extra
an
11.
additional,
But
really like an additional.
But I'm
20
still
feet.
concerned. I understand that
I know.
you're not, I'm still concerned. I'm putting it out there that I am still.
I'm asking for a little compromise.
I feel, well. I feel like Everybody's been compromising.
So.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of
We haven't
compromise.
addressed the gate
But
yet.
this is a different issue.
You still have a concern about the width of the 6 foot stretch of gate, right?
Well, I think it's. The vehicular access for maintenance or whatever, it makes sense for it to be a little wider.
But it doesn't have to be 6 feet tall.
No, I'm asking about the width of the gate,
Yeah.
yeah, where it starts to
Could you
go
show
up
the
to
gate,
6
please?
feet.
Sorry, could you show the gate front gate? Oh, yeah.
Could be 5 feet. So to be gentler. Like, instead of 6 feet.
It's not vehicular access, it's got a top on it. Get right through it.
Now,
No, there's no top on it. There's gates on it.
That's like foot gate, and then the little window is just a lighter.
These are both operable,
Okay,
but this one, that's expected to be used for people to pass through, that's 4 feet. and the
4
other
feet.
one is 2.
4 feet is not a problem.
You do?
I do not.
And you don't have any problem with the height. I'm just asking.
I'd almost rather see the gate be 5 feet. And I wouldn't even care if it went to 7 feet with an arch over top of it, to let some air underneath it. But that's. The bottom part of this gate is what, 4 feet?
No,
The bottom's
Bottom's, I think, no.
But
From
you're
from
talking
the
about
window to
the,
the ground, what's that?
or like 3.5.
There's a gauge. Which doesn't give you that dimension, total gate height is 6 feet, so
So it's
that looks to me like it's the most.
3.5.
But there is still visibility through that, so it's not like it's fully blocked.
No, I understand that, but.
it's making me really nervous. Sorry, no comment there. Because we're already accepting the metal, we're accepting 5 feet. We're accepting a 6 foot gate, then I'm having a problem, I'm having heartburn about this.
About the gate.
About the overall, because we, you know. By our own history, it should be 4 foot wall, and. It's now a 5 foot wall, but somewhat. That's partly wall, partly fence, and a big standard gate.
There are tons of examples in the neighborhood. If you're talking about the west side, I took pictures of all of them today that are 6 foot plus.
Many, there are
on the
many,
sides.
there are many,
You
like
take
on this
the
front.
west side, not in historic structures.
Took pictures of all the ones that I saw today.
They're not in historic structures.
Even the one that surrounds, even on the side of the commissary, that's 6 feet.
That's
You've
part of
got
the
the hen
structure.
house that's across,
That's part of the
that's over
structure.
6 feet.
We talked about this last time. The
even-
commissary and the post trader store are. That's part
The
of the
walls are
structure.
part of the house.
But even the guidelines say on the sides, it can go up to 6 feet.
Yes,
So if we're going by the guidelines for the 4 foot, then we need to respect the guidelines for the sides too.
but this is the front, right? I
This
don't
is
think
front.
we're not talking, you weren't talking about the front. You were talking about you were talking about the front, not the sides, right?
I'm talking about the front strictly.
Only, yeah, there was no question about your height on the sides. I didn't hear the question.
Any other comments on the gate? Or is there comment about steel tubes on the gate?
Right now, they're calling that as rod, so it would be the same as rebar, they just don't have the texture of rebar, they're smooth. Because I thought, I anticipated that you might have a problem with rebar because rebar wasn't rebar.
You saying that they didn't have rebar in the felt decks?
They did, but it might not have had the same texture.
They had barbed wire, we'd be talking barbed wire.
This is very hard.
It's really hard. Yeah. Do we go ahead and make a motion and take a vote and see where we are? Do that. I mean, I don't know what else to do because I think there's that, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. I mean, we could sit here and look at each other, but I'm tired. I want to go home.
Then,
So I'm still a little bit confused, Elaine. So you're concerned about the 6 feet in height of the gate, the central
Yes.
gate.
yeah,
Yeah.
Too bad there's not a person in this thing. You want a person? Yeah, put some people in there so we can see what they're doing.
Short people, put some short.
And it's a concern that is from
5'3", right?
view
That's
from
a separate code.
if that were-
That's seven.
Yeah.
or
I would rather hold it at 4 feet. We're already accommodating the metal at 5 feet. I would rather not see it go to 6 feet.
4 feet wouldn't meet the standards for the pool.
It is 4 feet, the wall is 4 feet,
Yeah,
right?
Well,
Are you
that's,
proposing only just to cut the area that rises to the gate?
to make it a 5-foot gate instead of a
Okay, so
6-foot
you drop
gate,
the, drop it.
was
but I
my,
feel like that kind of ruins some of this like rolling nature that you guys are looking for with variation in height rather than just going straight across. It's,
well,
The issue is visibility of the rear house.
but you're
Right.
still, look at all
I
the
know,
visibility on the
I
side and
understand,
through the
but-
gate.
You know,
That's still
it's just-
a ton more than we have today.
Is that Daniel?
Carol, even though the gate is tall at 6 feet, it gives you more visibility into the property than the rest of the wall in the front. So I think it provides some nice variation with the rest of the front facing wall and gives you more visibility. That's what we were looking for.
Move that guy over against the wall so we can see him a little bit.
that's a point.
would you repeat it?
Well, I think she's saying that with this 6-foot high gate, you have a window then that probably affords more visibility than it would be if you had a 5-foot wall and then more.
The top style of the gate.
Right, if you, right,
Base.
exactly, right, if you
Right.
proportionally lower.
Rail.
I think you've got a
Can I just
Yes.
add one more point?
Yeah.
I mean, and I certainly heard the aesthetic argument. The code simply says it cannot be higher than 4 feet. The reason it is there is because in every single house on the street proposed a wall, and it came to this committee, every single person can propose this solution, which is actually a partial wall that's 4 feet and a 6-foot high center section with a gate. And that's what will happen. There's only 30 houses in this historic district. There are only a few that are visible from the street in the same way. And when the Post Trader store or a very significant building comes because they want to put in a yard wall and enclose the front area, and they're proposing something similar, you've created a new standard that is
A 6-foot.
a 6-foot section. So the code is really clear. PRS said it.
Well, we're not here to see what the code says and then make sure that's exactly what people do. I mean,
Yes,
I disagree with that
I am.
concept. I mean, a 4-foot
That's-
wall across here would be much worse
It was
aesthetically than this.
and for visibility.
The reason I wanted a person in there is you can see, they can see over the wall and they can see through the gate easily. And if you took the overall openness across the whole stretch, I mean, personally, I think if you if you started that curve earlier and came down a little sooner,
It's
you know,
still
to the-
6 foot. Get
it
it?
wasn't so wide there.
Yeah.
The overall effect of the wall would be an average of 4 feet.
Why is everybody so dead?
Right?
What?
Who was that?
I think it's very.
I don't know. I remain concerned about the precedent set. I voiced that and yeah, I think it's a lovely wall too, but not for Fort Lowell. And not for such a contributing in Fort.
Okay, well then, I think it's gonna come down to a vote.
It's not a wall, right? It's a. I guess I'm struggling with
really
the idea
open
here of the
gate.
wall. I mean, it's not a wall, it's a gate. That's.
Paul
With
tried to.
openings.
Paul
Right, I
tried
mean,
to
if
tell
we-
us
if
that.
we-
We're talking
can we
about probably like
extrapolate this to a
4
wall?
square feet total of visibility. That would really contribute significantly to the aesthetic of like the rolling nature of the wall that we see all across the entire neighborhood. If we make it flat across, that's not going to, that's gonna look more bottom. Realistically.
If you, the little house, the Harrington house, yeah, they have 4-foot wall, they have 4-foot gate. And they might even have a gate that's a little higher.
That's right in front of buildings. That's what makes it a little different.
I'll tell you what, let's
Okay.
move on, because we're
Yes,
getting
okay.
stuck and it's getting late.
Okay.
So we need somebody to make a motion about these aspects of it. I'm not done. Anybody have trouble with steel tubes? I have trouble with steel tubes. That seems like a very modern, or, you know, you can put it at the guardhouse down the way. But is that the alternative, is steel tubes?
Alternative to steel rod,
Yes.
cheaper, weaker. I mean. It depends on the wall is obviously. The wall is steel. What's better about a steel tube over a rebar?
No, I'm not in favor of steel tubes. As part of this design, everything else is kind of organic, it's very mixed. The steel tubes and the idea that we're gonna glue the metal to make it turn black and gray is the way it was described,
Right,
right?
so gun gluing, that's process, so first sandblast,
Right.
get off all the nail scales.
And what we've said is, we want them to turn brown.
Which
Right.
is what happened. So
Okay.
the reason to sandblast gun glue. And then oil them, is it turns into charcoal, and then it eventually rusts to dark brown, you avoid the orange process that normally
Right.
happens with.
Do you agree, Mike?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on. I did have a problem with, this is a part of a wall, and you know, all this issues about pool fence. There's no fence in the back, there's no fence on the east. Right, is that not planned
It's in the plan. It's there,
on the
There's-
east side?
yeah, the whole length.
Is
From
what
the
is
test,
that?
that's the same steel,
It's all steel,
you know,
okay. Any concerns about that?
On the
comments
east
about it?
side?
On the east side,
It's something that we've not seen.
right,
it's Ocotillo now, Ocotillo's not going away.
and is that again on a wall, or is it just fence?
You're not changing the east side.
Yes.
We have to add a fence on there as part of the pool enclosure, but we are doing iron fencing. It's not wall.
Will your neighbors see it? What you're doing?
Certainly, yes, there's an ocotillo fence on their side.
Somebody's got a raised hand. If you're changing something and the neighbor can see it, doesn't it have to come for review?
It's part of these
It's,
plans.
It's part of the review, yes.
We've already reviewed it.
No,
then.
we have never ever talked about it.
Okay.
And that's why I'm asking about it. So someone's raising their hand. Would you go ahead and speak?
Hi, this is Rose Halstead. We live on the east side of the property. We have never been aware of any fence that is going to be put in on the east side, especially a metal one. And the Ocotillo fence is our fence. It cannot be used, excuse me, I have a sinus infection. It cannot be used to meet the requirements of the pool or its permitting. So we have not been privileged to any of the drawings that are going to affect us. Because through the Ocotillo fence, you can see the pool, the yard, the pool pump, everything. So, I like to have plans on that being shown to us.
And is it possible to be privy to some of this information? You know, we've been kind of silent, but this affects us a lot.
If the fence is on our property,
I'm aware of that, but the point is, we have never been given any plans for that, any drawings to look at. Through our yard and the Ocotillo fence, you could see into your yard. So we will be looking at whatever you put there. When we originally spoke, Jill, you mentioned you were going to put a wall there.
which we immediately told you that we decided not to do.
No, you didn't immediately tell us that.
Nope.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
not gonna argue with you guys on this public meeting. I don't think that that's appropriate.
I'm not arguing. I'm
It's
just
a fact,
stating the
Jill.
fact.
We have it written by you.
Well, for purposes of our review, we need to, it's a 360 review.
We
Any
need
part
to-
of it is visible from any right of way. I'm not sure that it is, but I think that you guys need to solve the side yard fence question. If there's a,
It's, I mean, it's
Just a side yard?
It's in the drawings, it's in the proposal.
So you're asking for us to review it, and we've never looked at it. As far as I know. Did you ever look at it, Mike?
I looked at it as part of the landscape plan. But it was on the
And I
landscape
thought it
plan.
was something that
It's in
was
the
there.
architecture too.
I see the property lines, I don't see, but you know, it's really hard to see on this size, so. It's just a straight fence with a gate, is that what it is?
And you can eat from the north side.
Yeah,
And tell you what you know about it. It's number 5 and number 6. Which is the same note, it calls out the same.
It's a
thing.
little deep. That's gonna go here. and then
yeah, I
go
guess
along
because it
the
didn't
property
have any
line.
numbers.
The butt against the-
I assumed that it.
Because it's the property line. And then it continues along here. No, it's cool.
Can you pull up the drawing, this drawing?
So. And it's this whole section is the same fabric.
Yeah, it would all be iron. Iron fencing.
So it'd be iron fencing and closed. Will we be able to see it?
If I may, I'm sorry, I don't want to get into semantics. But iron fencing is different. This is steel. And if it
sorry,
really
go ahead.
was iron, that would be a different thing. Go ahead.
Still.
Sorry, my.
I just want to be clear, just.
We're not gonna hold you to iron at some point.
So anyway, this is the plan blown up. You can see, so right here is note number 5. Which talks about steel fencing, and it's the same note that's being used on this fencing that runs along the east side of the property. So this gate right here. Here it's running along the top of the existing wall, so it's shorter.
Okay. And I want to clarify something as well too, so that nobody gets confused in the chaos. This is our property line, so the Ocotillo fence that currently exists is a couple feet away from this. So it wouldn't be touching.
So you would be building inside the
Yes.
Ocotillo fence.
Yeah.
Is and you're saying it's the same as something else that
Same as the
the rebar.
Yeah.
The bars.
Yeah.
The same bars, but look like
Does anyone have an
top.
issue with the metal fence, like I say, metal fence on the east side? Or the rear of the property?
Is the same as the west side.
Yes.
Yes.
They're matching. Okay.
Okay, and then the other thing I'm concerned about is anything else structurally, since we've got this, because of this pool, we got this issue. And we're trying to help out with privacy, but the other aspects of this property are this is historic. I mean, most of this property has been there for, longer than we've been, some of us have been here. And like the niche is historic, it's an historic structure. If you're gonna change the niche, if you're gonna incorporate it, build a wall around it, do something else with it, it really should come back here for minor review.
I don't intend to do anything with the niche other than having iron fencing butt up against the two sides of it, not even actually touch it completely. So that is completely my plan. Our neighbors have asked us to look into moving the niche completely onto our property. I've looked into that and most contractors say that would not be a good idea.
We'd also like the windmill to go away, that's not this way.
What? Charles, what they put that in? It is his lion.
No, the windmill's
That's
not,
her.
as best as we can control it, the windmill's not going anywhere. Probably needs some reinforcements at some point.
Okay,
And
let's
is there
go
anything-
ahead and go step through and make a motion for this. For what we're doing.
Is the north fence is new?
So
The
north-
south fence, the south.
No,
fence.
no.
This is all existing from
Okay.
this point
It's all existing, will remain the same.
along the south edge of the property back around to the start of this existing low wall.
Okay, should I start a motion? Someone else want to start a motion?
Go ahead.
Actually, what I'd like to do is I'll read out what I've got and then somebody else can create a motion from it. What I've got here is that the recommendations are that visibility from the front be encouraged as much as possible, that the wall that exists, I'm just like all over the place in my notes. Okay, starting with the front wall. That the wall, the block wall itself be no higher than 4 feet. Except surrounding the gate. And that the easternmost part of the front fence be metal. That the wall's character is, sorry guys. Meandering.
Irregular.
Help me out here.
Yeah.
Irregular, meandering. Lumpy.
I noticed your drawings showed lumpy today.
Just depends on how
But
the
your
sun
pictures.
Yeah, he's trying.
It's supposed to be
Depth and
lumpy
height.
walls.
What's the sun? Really.
To no higher than 5 feet. On any side. No, I'm not saying that, that's on the side we're talking about.
You were something about the color.
That it's,
Color of this,
so basically, if it's not 4 feet, it's 5 feet, that's what we decided, there are no 3 foot walls, right?
I guess the 3 foot wall became 5 foot wall, so yes, that's it.
You've got that 50-foot section that now is a solid wall.
In the south.
Are you ready for that?
West, yes.
The south, so the west wall is now
Solid.
solid walls with like metal, I'm gonna call it panels
No
in
metal,
between,
no metal.
because there's no metal on top of those walls.
That the applicant owner tries in all manners to maintain a natural rural quality to this construction.
Yeah.
That there's intention to retain the Ocotillo in the northeast corner.
Northwest, southwest.
Northwest.
It is northwest, that's good. Good catch.
The color of the wall to be determined, come back for minor review for the color, when you decide what the color is.
What's your recommendation?
Should we specify that the color review to be a courtesy review? Versus a minor
Well-
review, because a minor review can pull permit and everything like that to get into the system. Where our guidelines say that,
We
you
don't
know,
have to.
color doesn't necessarily
Okay.
need a minor
During
review.
construction, the
Yeah.
color reviews.
Yeah, color to be reviewed as part of. Especially, yeah.
That the metal color is intended to rusticate, right?
Yes.
You wanna put the matching metal on the east side within the property line.
East fence to match the. Other assumptions.
Orientation wise, it's like put north up.
I know, it's weird, it's weird when you're
That's
just,
a
sorry,
solid,
it's
yeah.
really weird.
What about
Okay,
that?
now I gotta look again at
We
it.
talked about 4-inch spans instead of 2-inch spans.
That, yeah, that was discussed, but then.
So, and that
But
was-
some people like the
Orange
amount
fence.
of the
You
wires.
don't like it?
No,
You want 2-inch spans?
well, I like what the architect is on.
Architects.
I agree, I'm trying to get, we're all trying to get to the side plan.
Can we not be as?
Yeah.
Can we not prescribe the
Right.
distance between the pickets, but to have them be compliant with pool code? So that we can let the homeowner determine what the size of the picket should be at the time of construction?
Well, then, yes, you can do that. But it still
'Cause-
has to not obscure the visibility.
Sure.
It can't
Yeah.
increase the
Sure, it's
density.
Yeah, so if we say.
We are not increasing, I
Yeah.
can promise you, I do not want
Yeah.
to increase the density, that would be very
We're
expensive.
gonna try to save.
It's within my best
Or-
interest to
or-
increase the density.
Yeah, the so we're trying to get better. Prototypes of things, well, it up, it's
2 to 4 inches.
not.
It's very-
It can be longer, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
And to accept the
And-
gate,
what'd you say?
to accept the 6-foot height of the gate. If in our request, we look at it as a variance, a noted variance or something of 6 foot,
Another exception.
or something like that, so that at least,
I'm gonna need the language for that. So it's really no-
what's the language,
Just so
Damien?
it
Could you
doesn't-
go back to?
No such thing, huh?
Photo or the.
Don't even do it. Don't even do it. That's the.
What you're trying to do, yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly acceptable to accept the drawings, but if you want to. Narrow the precedent, I would say, you know, in order to achieve. Variation in height, the organic yields, you know, the 6 would be as appropriate to the site.
Take this 4-foot line
In this, like, without,
across. and-
so 2.
I think normally stop that you see it as part of the wall, and that it's really being looked at separate from the wall.
Take
Which
that
is a
away
4-foot
from
solid height.
this curve, so the overall average. 4 feet. The open. Yeah, so
Very specific.
my problem is the length of this.
Not as
I see. If it shortened up, I would like it, or whatever. But what I'm saying is that you have a 4 foot. If you extend the 4 foot line over, you have a portion of this that is under 4 feet. So if you took the amount of that portion that's under 4 feet and took it out of this wall, the overall average would be 4 feet.
Yeah.
I understand. So I'm gonna repeat it back, different wording, right?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna take an imaginary line of 4 feet right here. And I'm gonna calculate the area in that rectangle right here. Yeah, and that rectangle right there. And I'm gonna take that area and I'm gonna put half of it over here. And half of it over here.
Is to reduce so that the overall average is 4 feet.
So
Yeah, exactly.
I
Want that as a recommendation, because I.
So
you
it's
don't need to
changing,
explain it,
it's
just
changing
change
the
wording.
angles of the incline to 6
Mike,
feet.
could you just say it again in a word that's in a sentence?
That the overall height of the wall shall not exceed 4 feet. And that they can take the portion of the opening in the gate and apply that to the height of the wall. That makes sense?
I think that's gonna be confusing though for the next people who are gonna review it. I just don't want any like misconceptions about what you're trying to do. Like, I totally get what you're saying, and I think that we will achieve that, and we will not.
But then you have
Take
to
advantage of
say it so
that.
that it can be explained to PRS when they read it.
It's changing the angles of that,
Well,
of each end.
Yeah, no, it's more than that, though. It's saying that this wall will not exceed 4 feet. And you give them the flexibility to go higher in certain places and lower in other places, as long as the overall average does not exceed 4 feet.
Of the gate.
Of the entire. Take the length of the wall, the total height.
It's-
the two of them.
It's like match is what you're trying to like, just accomplish is to over.
Well, it's
I'm like, it's gonna be confusing if you word it that way.
Not for precedent or narrow the precedent, I would go for more reasoning in terms of what you're trying to achieve design wise, maybe more than precedent in your
Yeah.
question. And I've heard people mention that the opening of the gate, provides visibility of the house and that the
It
variation.
offsets the height.
Yeah.
The openness of the gate offsets the height of
And
the
all these people are here so they can get this.
It's either that or it's some of the paragraph by.
There's some beer in the back.
Why did you go so?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, no.
To specify the opening
Yeah.
of the gate, that's, part of the design, part of the reason that.
That's scary.
Just
Specify that the open can be at least.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the dimension is, but do you have the dimension of the opening?
I will have.
The reason that I think we want to do this is for what Damien pointed out, that the next one comes along. We will have a president that said the wall can't be over 4 feet. An average of 4 feet. So if they want to suggest something that goes above 4 feet, they have to have something that goes below 4 feet.
Yeah, but
Is
just,
the closest thing we've had so far.
yeah, we're almost
There's an
there.
average of 4 feet, but you get credits for the wall segments that are less than 4 feet.
That's correct.
Yeah. Credits.
And overall, you should maintain the same visual access to the structure. A little more here.
All right, I'll put that in. I'm gonna put the average.
Yeah,
All right.
so if you have a 2 foot wall section, you can have them.
Well, that's what I'm.
Were you in the middle? Were you,
With a maximum.
Wait,
not
somebody-
16,
yes?
6 feet.
Who's talking?
yeah, it was Colleen. It sounded like at one point you were in the middle of forming a motion.
Yes.
We are
Yes,
still.
we
Well,
are.
then it's ended discussion. I don't quite understand what's going on.
We're forming.
We're
the motion.
not forming a motion, we're writing down the recommendations that we've discussed, which will turn into a motion in about 2 minutes. There's some other things on the plan that talk about future work. Can we take those out?
Sure.
Remove all references to future work.
Yes.
And that we have not discussed here, the landscape architecture. So that has already been reviewed.
I reviewed the planting plan. Yes,
And it was.
I reviewed the planting plan specifically on the outside of the building and the others.
In February.
Yeah, I don't have much comment about the inside landscape architecture.
Okay. Okay. We also remove the parking. Yes.
Sure.
So, because I don't want to formalize the parking either. I don't want to formalize that we've accepted the parking.
Yeah.
Just remove it. Gotta be so specific now. It's just not fun anymore. Okay, would you like to make a motion?
It's a motion with that.
Straight.
Would you like a beer?
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
You can read it.
Yeah, I can read it. All right. So I would like to move that the front wall does not exceed 4 feet, except around the area of the gate. That the east portion of the wall is a mixture of metal and block, or masonry. That the masonry sections are regular or irregular.
Not the east section, that's the.
Or the west section, sorry. I'm sorry, let me start again. So the front section, I like to move, that the front portion of the wall does not exceed 4 feet.
An average.
An average of 4 feet.
No, around.
Yeah, okay. So we'll move that the. So. I'd like to move that the front section of the wall does not exceed 4 feet. Except around the area of the gate. That the east section,
To the west section.
the east section of the property, that wall or that fence, right, is metal as proposed in the plan. That the west section is a mixture of both masonry and metal, right? That the masonry sections are irregular, meandering, lumpy, and step in height to be no higher than 5 feet and no lower than 3 feet. The southwest wall is to be solid at 5 feet with metal panels in between. That the we'd like to continue with that the owner tries to keep the rural nature and quality of the total project. Let's see. What else do we need to move about?
Color
Is this?
to come back for.
Yeah, so we'd like the color to come back for a courtesy review
During construction.
during construction. The metal is intended to rusticate. Or color in some way throughout the entirety of the project. That the span of the pickets is somewhere between 2 to 4 inches. To be decided by the owner. So the height of the gate is gonna be 6 feet. And it's not to set precedence. Not to set precedence for other projects in the neighborhood. That the total project will be organic. And the gate is, what's this mean?
No, that's where.
Okay,
they
that's
started
where it kind of started
all that stuff.
to devolve.
And then to specify that the opening of the gate.
Yeah, the opening of the gate is
The
at
the
least,
gate window.
yeah, the
is at
gate
least-
window is at least,
the gate- What is it?
Oh, how tall is it?
No, the opening of the gate. The
the
window.
window, what you can see
The
in
proportions of
that
the gate
panel.
As depicted, this should have been. Okay,
I think better answer, but I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, it's right there.
What's the opening, I think is what they're asking.
Yeah. Yeah, that we maintain visual access to the structure in the rear. And that, yeah, so we remove reference to
future
the,
projects.
future projects. Remove reference to the parking and, this is not to count as a landscape review. I think that's correct. We get all that?
Which has already been reviewed.
Pardon me?
Should already been reviewed.
Or did we already?
It was reviewed in
Okay.
February.
It was reviewed in February, sorry, not reviewed as part of
This,
this review, sorry, yeah, yeah, please don't make me do that. Yeah.
you got that already.
No, it's okay, it's okay, no. Got a full-time job, this is. So can we move to vote, or can we move to second?
Second.
Okay, David. Alright,
And let's vote. There's Chris,
aye,
Mike,
Aye.
Mary Lou,
Me,
Carol,
Hi.
Elaine, yes. David.
Aye.
voted.
You do.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So it motion passes 5
I
to
think
1.
it's a wonderful compromise. But I still live.
I'm sorry, thank you, everybody. That was hard work, many times.
Thank you to everybody, truly. I know that it was hard for everybody, so I appreciate it.
And I don't think there's anything else on the agenda.
We can adjourn. I'm not so moved. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Sure, I'm glad I brought my sound cord. I haven't tried to think it's been too bad.
I'm gonna think that was mine.